Okay, let's get started with today's topic. Number 11. The Green Sahara Graveyard. Scientists found something wild in Niger's desert, a massive graveyard from when the Sahara was green. The biggest Stone Age burial ground ever found. Many groups of people lived here. The first group were the Scythians. These guys were absolute units. 6 feet tall with muscles that would make the rock look like a couch potato. They spent their days wrestling giant Nile perch with bone harpoons. The desert back then had more water than most countries do today. Then came the Tenerarians several thousand years later. These folks were more sophisticated. They had cattle, made jewelry, and lived a more settled life. Scientists found something they call the Triple Embrace Burial. A woman and 2 kids buried together, frozen in time like they were hugging each other goodbye. There were no signs of violence, no broken bones, nothing to tell us how they died. The desert preserved everything perfectly. They found fishing hooks, decorated pottery, and tools scattered everywhere. They even found hippo bones and crocodile remains in what's now one of the driest places on Earth. But then the rains stopped, the lakes dried up, and the whole place turned into the world's biggest sandbox. All those bodies sat there, perfectly preserved, until scientists accidentally stumbled upon them while searching for dinosaurs. Before we jump ahead, take a second and click that subscribe button. Thank you. Number 10. The Lost City of Ubar. Deep in the Arabian desert, there's a place locals call the Atlantis of the Sands. For centuries, people thought it was just a myth. But in the 1,990 seconds, scientists using satellite radar found something hidden under the sand. They discovered a massive fortress with 8 walls and towers on each corner. This was Ubar, the ancient world's Las Vegas. The city got rich from selling frankincense, which back then was worth more than gold. But they made one huge mistake. They built their city on top of a cave system. The whole place was sitting on a giant sinkhole. One day, the caves couldn't hold the weight anymore. The ground cracked open like an egg. The entire city, all that wealth, all those people, got swallowed up by the desert. When archaeologists found it, they discovered the city didn't just collapse. It literally fell into the earth. Parts of buildings were found stuck halfway down into massive sinkholes. They found pieces of ancient Chinese pottery, Roman coins, and Indian jewelry scattered everywhere. All this stuff from different corners of the world, proof of how rich and connected this place was. The city's still sinking. The caves underneath are still collapsing, slowly pulling more of ancient Ubar into the earth. Number 9. The White Sands Footprints. Scientists found something mind-blowing in New Mexico's White Sands National Park. Ancient footprints, perfectly preserved in what used to be the edge of an Ice Age lake. These prints are over 23,000 years old, way earlier than we thought humans were in America. One set shows hunters chasing a giant ground sloth. You can see where the sloth suddenly stopped and stood on its hind legs, realizing it was being followed. Another trail was left by a woman or teenager walking with a small kid. The prints go on for over a mile, showing where they slipped in the mud from carrying the child. Most of the prints were made by teenagers and children fetching water. Ancient parents sent their kids right through an area with dire wolves and American lions. The prints are so well preserved you can see every detail. The heel strikes, the arches, even the toe marks are still there after 23,000 years. These barefoot tracks in the mud turned to stone, outlasting the civilization that made them. That ancient lake is gone now. The grassland turned to desert. But those footprints remain, telling stories about life in ancient America. Number 8. The Salt Men. Deep in Iran's desert, miners found something terrifying. Perfect human bodies, preserved by salt. Their skin turned dark and leathery, but their faces still show their final expressions. The first one they found had long red hair and a beard, still wearing his gold earring and leather boots. This dude was living his best life until the mine collapsed on him. The salt preserved everything: their clothes, tools, even the food in their stomachs. Scientists found tapeworm eggs in one guy's gut. Ancient people couldn't even trust their office lunch menu. One was just a teenager, maybe 16 years old. They found him with his hands up, like he was trying to shield himself. The tunnel had collapsed on him, trapping him forever in that final moment of fear. These weren't kings or priests buried with gold and jewels, just regular miners who had the worst possible timing. They went to work one day thinking about what to have for dinner. Instead, they became the world's best preserved mummies. Now these ancient miners face a new threat. After surviving 2,000 years in salt, they're starting to decay in poorly sealed museum cases. Their final moments, frozen in salt, outlasted empires. Number 7. The desert kites. Ancient hunters built something terrifying in the desert. Massive stone walls stretch for miles, forming giant funnel shapes that look like kites from above. Some are bigger than 40 football fields. The walls weren't even that tall, just about waist height. But animals don't like crossing any kind of barrier, even small ones. They'll run alongside it instead, right into the trap. At the narrow end was a pit, covered up to look like normal ground. Ancient hunters would chase entire herds into these stone funnels. By the time the animals realized they were trapped, it was too late. These hunters were clever. They built them right on migration routes. They even positioned them so the morning sun would blind the running animals. Scientists found over 6,000 of these traps scattered across the desert. Some are older than the pyramids. They found so many animal bones in the pits, they think entire species went extinct because of these traps. The desert preserved these death traps so well, they're still catching animals today. Modern herders have to watch out because their sheep and goats can still get trapped in them. Those ancient hunters built their killing machines to last. Number 6. The Lost Army of Cambyses. In 525 BC, an entire Persian army just vanished in Egypt's desert. 50,000 soldiers, completely gone without a trace. No bodies, no weapons, nothing. King Cambyses sent his army to attack the priests at the Oracle of Amun. Back then, that was like trying to attack the Vatican, Area 51, and Fort Knox, all at once. The army marched into the desert, loaded with gold-plated weapons and royal banners. Then a massive sandstorm hit while they were having lunch. The wind howled so loud they couldn't hear their own screams. When the storm cleared, the army was gone. In 2009, 2 Italian archaeologists discovered bronze weapons, Persian arrowheads, and human bones in the desert. They found skeletons with their hands covering their faces, frozen in their final moments. But Egypt kicked them out before they could dig deeper. The desert's still out there, keeping its secrets. Every time the wind shifts the dunes, more bones surface. 50,000 people walked into the desert and never walked out. And somewhere under all that sand lies the answer to what happened to an entire army. Number 5. The Blythe Intaglios. In 1932, a pilot spotted something extraordinary while flying over California's desert. Giant drawings carved into the desert floor. The largest figure stretches 171 feet long, longer than a Boeing 737. Ancient people made these by scraping away dark rocks to reveal lighter soil underneath. They created huge human figures, animal shapes, and spiral patterns that have lasted for centuries. The desert's harsh conditions actually helped preserve them with barely any plant growth to cover them up. The local tribes say these aren't random doodles. The human figures represent Ma Stamho, their creator god. And the animal figures show Hatakulia, a mountain lion spirit that helped create the creator. The tribes used these massive drawings for sacred ceremonies and rituals. They'd gather around these giant figures to celebrate their creation stories and honor their dead. Today they're protected by fences, but tire tracks from the 1,970 seconds still cut through figures that took generations to create. These ancient artworks were only visible from above, created for the gods to see. Number 4. The Alien Baby of Atacama. In 2003, someone discovered a bizarre skeleton in Chile's Atacama Desert. In an old ghost town, they found a tiny skeleton, only 6 inches long, wrapped in white cloth with a purple ribbon. The skeleton looked straight out of a sci-fi movie. The skull was shaped like a cone, and it only had 10 pairs of ribs instead of the normal 12. UFO hunters were convinced this was proof of alien life. But when scientists took DNA from the bones, they found it was actually a human baby girl with rare genetic problems. She had at least 7 damaged genes that control bone growth. These mutations completely rewrote her body's instruction manual. The desert preserved her tiny body perfectly. Now doctors are using her DNA to understand bone development and aging. This skeleton that everyone thought was an alien is helping scientists treat serious bone disorders in living patients. But while researchers were conducting their studies, her remains were being displayed like a sideshow attraction. Now there's a movement to return her remains to Chile and give her the dignity she deserves. After all, she wasn't an alien specimen. She was a human baby who never had a chance at life. Number 3. The desert city of Chaco Canyon. In the middle of New Mexico's desert sits a city that shouldn't exist. The ancient builders picked the worst possible spot, a place with barely enough rain to keep a cactus alive. But they didn't just survive here, they built something incredible. They created massive buildings, some over 5 stories high. The walls are so precise, you couldn't slip a credit card between the stones. Modern architects still can't figure out how they built them so perfectly. These people were obsessed with the stars. Every building lines up perfectly with the sun, moon, and cardinal directions. During the summer solstice, beams of light shoot through special windows, hitting exact spots on the walls. The buildings are full of weird features that make no sense. Doorways lead to nowhere, and rooms were sealed up as soon as they were built. Some rooms were filled with 1,000,000 pieces of turquoise. They built massive roads through the desert, some as wide as modern highways. These roads go straight through mountains instead of around them. They didn't even use wheels or have any pack animals to pull carts. Scientists found exotic items everywhere: copper from Michigan, macaws from Mexico, seashells from California. All this in a place where you can barely grow enough food to survive. Then one day, they just walked away. They sealed up their rooms, buried their sacred objects, and vanished. Now all we have are empty buildings that line up with the stars, roads that go nowhere, and 1,000,000 questions about what really happened in that canyon. Number 2. The Valley of Whales. In Egypt's western desert, there's a place that breaks your brain, a desert valley filled with whale skeletons. Over 1,000 complete whale fossils scattered across the sand. These aren't regular whales. These are ancient whales from 40 million years ago, back when they still had legs. Actual legs with ankles and toes, proving that whales once walked on land. The biggest one they found was called Basilosaurus. This creature was 70 feet long, with a head like a crocodile, and teeth the size of bananas. Scientists even found its last meal, a smaller whale called Dorodon, still in its stomach. The desert used to be an ocean floor. All these whale bodies got buried in the mud, and the mud turned to stone. Then the ocean dried up, leaving behind a whale graveyard in one of the driest places on Earth. The fossils are lying there in the open. No digging required. The wind blew away all the sand and rock, leaving behind complete skeletons. Every sandstorm reveals new bones. Ancient sharks, crocodiles, and sea cows lie mixed in with the whale bones. It's like nature built its own museum, displaying the story of how fish-eating land animals turned into ocean giants. Number 1. Göbekli Tepe. In the Turkish desert, archaeologists found something that broke history. Stone temples built 12,000 years ago, 7,000 years before the pyramids. Back when humans were supposed to be simple hunter-gatherers, someone built this massive complex. The stone pillars are huge, some weighing more than 4 school buses. They're covered in carvings of animals, lions, foxes, and birds. But there's something creepy about these carvings. None of them have eyes. Every single animal is carved blind. These people didn't have metal tools or even pottery. They carved these massive stones with pieces of flint. Scientists found human skulls buried under the pillars. Some had deep cuts in them, showing signs of weird rituals. They also found a statue of a human head with its face smashed off, but the neck perfectly intact. The builders didn't live here. They built these massive temples and then buried them on purpose, layer after layer of sand and stone, like they were trying to hide it. We used to think people had to settle down and farm before they could build temples. But these hunter-gatherers built something bigger than a football field, then covered it up and walked away. And we still don't know why. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see next videos.